What's good, everybody? It's the Clown with Cap Show. Shout out to the best pound-for-pound poker player of all time, Daniel Negreanu. What he has done for the game of poker is amazing. Daniel first started playing poker back in the early 90s, and what's crazy is today that poker's evolved so much. I mean, we look even back in the 60s and 70s, poker was normally looked down upon, like you were a gangster or you were a bad person, you were looked down on, and all this stuff. Nowadays in 2023, now it's like we got the nerds in there, we got people that have college degrees that are playing poker, just everything that's happening. The GTO, Game Theory Optimal, we have computers, we have software to learn different things, when to bet, when not to bet, when to bluff, when not to bluff. But for Daniel Negreanu, for me, he's in my top 3 greatest poker players of all time. Obviously, we got to put the Godfather Doyle Brunson at number 1, but for Daniel Negreanu to survive this long in this game of poker, statistically, Texas Hold'em is definitely that game where it's like, there's no limit. It's no limit Hold'em. You can buy in for a penny. You can buy in for $1 billion. Whatever the case is, whatever the stakes. But for Daniel Negreanu to last this long in this game, not just Hold'em, there's all different types of games that Daniel's played throughout the years. But Daniel, his first WSOP bracelet was back in 1998. And I remember watching him play. He was in a Nike jumpsuit and all this, and he won $178,000, which is pretty crazy for even back then around that figure. But for Daniel Negreanu to do that, really when he was a kid, when he was called Kid Poker, they still call him Kid Poker, even though he's about, almost 50 years old now. But for Daniel Negreanu, man, it's basically when he's playing against you in poker, it's basically face up. He knows what you have. He knows how you play the hand. It's like you're playing face up, and there's really no advantage to that, right? It's just Daniel, I think he has one of the best hand reading skills of all time. He just knows what you have. I mean, it's pretty sick. It's wizardy. It's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of like magic. It's like, how does he do this? How does Daniel Negreanu pull this out like that? I don't understand. It is crazy, but Daniel Negreanu, 6 WSOP bracelets, which is crazy. Not the most of all time. Phil Hellmuth, I know he's always a complainer. He has the most bracelets of all time, but for Daniel, 6. He has 2 World Poker Tour titles, which is crazy as well. It's amazing. He also has many books out. Small Ball Poker, Hold'em. I mean, this came out in the early 2000s. Hold'em Wisdom for All Players, which I think is his greatest book. And then Power Hold'em and Strategy. I think all these things that even back then, that when Daniel came out with this, even the Hold'em Wisdom for All Players, there's still some things that can relate to that. I remember reading the book, and Daniel said, one of the hardest hands to play post-flop is pocket jacks. You just don't know sometimes, and that's a tough hand to play, if an overpair hits the board, but you're playing your opponents in poker, and that's the beautiful thing. And I think another beautiful thing about the game of not just No Limit Hold'em, but Omaha, there's 7-card studs, so many different games, is you can represent different things. You can bluff, and anybody can come and play. I can't go compete against Tiger Woods on the golf course. You know what I'm saying? That's the beauty of poker, is anybody can play. It doesn't matter if you're a top professional or not. You can play and win. Which is crazy, right? I mean, we have top professionals. They're more than likely gonna win in the long run, but short term, it's like anybody can win. You can outplay a pro. That's just part of poker, and I think that's the beauty of the game, where anybody's welcome. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be fast. You don't have to be strong to play poker. You don't have to be tall. You don't have to be any of that, dude. All you have to have is a brain and 2 cards and some chips and some balls, maybe. And just go for it, right? And I think that's a great thing about poker, is there's just so many different aspects to it. You can represent a flush, with 3 diamonds out there, and you have 2 in your hand. There's just so many different things. I think poker's a really interesting game. I remember the first time I played it was back in 6th grade, and my dad gave me $50 to buy into the cash game. He bought me in $50. In the first 2 hands, I get pocket aces back to back. And the second time I get pocket aces, I announce it to the table. I go all in. My cousin said I don't have aces. He made a bet with me that I didn't have aces the second time. He basically said it was impossible. We bet $100, $150 on that, and I won. And ever since then, I was like, holy cow, this game is crazy, dude. That was my first time ever playing it in a live setting like that, and I'll never forget it. It was like yesterday, back-to-back aces, and to get back-to-back aces, dude, that's like unheard of. But it's happened, but it's a long shot. It really is. But, Daniel Negreanu, he's in the Poker Hall of Fame. I think, when it's all said and done, Daniel Negreanu will be up at the top. I really do. I put him, Phil Ivey even today, that's still in it, dude. Phil Ivey's been in it for so long, even the early 2000s. Back when Chris Moneymaker won the WSOP in 2003, that skyrocketed poker. I think that changed the whole dynamic of poker in general. From that moment on, when Chris Moneymaker beat Sammy Farhall, he wasn't supposed to win this tournament. He knocked out Phil Ivey when Phil Ivey turned a boat on him, and then Moneymaker rivered the ace for a higher boat. It's a sick game. It really is. In the cards, you can't control the cards. You can't control the turn in the river. You just can't. But I think, the difference is from early 2000s to now in poker, it's just so many players are more smart now. Say the flop is 7-7-5, and you have pocket aces, and you're getting raised on this board with no flush draws or anything. It's like, well, a lot of the times back in the early 2000s, the aces would go all in. And a lot of the times the guy would be like, I call with the 7, with trip 7s, and have the aces crushed. And I think that's one of the hardest hands as well post-flop is aces, because you kind of get married to aces, right? You get them in the hole pre-flop, and you just fall in love with them. And I think that's one of the hardest hands. That's why sometimes I like ace-king, because ace-king, if you miss the flop, you can get away from it. You can get away from it. But pocket aces, if the flop's like 7, 8, 9, you're not really in love right now. You're kind of like, oh, shoot, like, 2 pair beats me, a set beats me, a straight beats me, jack 10. Like, there's just so many different scenarios. But nowadays, it's like players are just smarter. We have tools. We have professionals talking over hands, what to do and what not to do, when to bet, what not to bet, does the bluff make sense, and all this stuff. But when we cut through the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th bets and all this, all the jazz, but what definitely poker and Texas Hold'em boils down to is, does your opponent have what they're representing or not? Are they lying to you, or are they telling the truth? That's really what it boils down to. Are they lying to you or telling the truth? Are they making a crazy bluff on you to make a hero call? And a hero call is like, say you got bottom pair on the board and everything beats you basically, and you just think that your opponent is bluffing, and you call with the hero, and he's got ace high, your lone bottom pair wins. And that's the beauty of it. You're not just playing your cards. The cards are the backup. You're playing your opponent. What does he have? Does he have an ace when the ace flops? Or does he have pocket kings and he's scared of the ace, so he checks? There's just so many different scenarios. How your opponents play. Do they like to bluff, on drawly boards? On 2 diamond boards when the flop's like jack 10, 3 with 2 diamonds? Do they like to bluff with the, open-ended with king, queen? Offsuit, they just have king high in theory at the flop, but their hand can improve better. They can hit a diamond, they can hit an ace for Broadway, they can hit so many different hands, right? You hit a 9 for a straight. They're just, it's crazy. It is a crazy game, and I think a lot of it is bankroll management as well. For definitely the young players that are coming up, you can blow through your bankroll easy in no time. You can have a 50 grand bankroll, in 1 weekend that 50 grand's gone. Just like that, you can get a couple bad coolers. A cooler's basically, say you got aces and kings, that's a cooler. Say the flop, you both have aces and kings, the flop's ace, king, deuce, that's a cooler. You flop the middle set with the kings, and obviously top set aces is never going anywhere. That's a cooler right there, and that just happens. That's part of poker. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. But I just love the game. There's so many different games, but I also think Phil Ivey is definitely up there as well. Same thing, right next to Daniel Negreanu, if not better. And Daniel even says that Phil Ivey's a better player, not just in Hold'em, all different aspects of different games. Phil Ivey's dominated from tournament to cash games, dude. There's just so many different levels to this. And I just think for Daniel, man, it's amazing. It really is. I mean, he was the WSOP Player of the Year back in 2004 and 2013. He's also the only player to receive that accolade more than once. Only Daniel Negreanu's done that. Only player to ever do that, dude. That is crazy, dude. Daniel Negreanu, he's just a legend, man. He really is. It's awesome. And what I find amazing about Daniel Negreanu is a lot of people say, oh, he's more of a tournament player, but let's go to the cash games, high stakes poker cash games. Now I think they're way on like 9 or 10, maybe even season 11. I'm not exactly sure, but Daniel Negreanu was on the first season, the first episode on High Stakes Poker, back when Doyle Brunson was really in his prime still. We're talking the early 2000s here. And Daniel Negreanu, young gun, kid poker, bought in for $1 million and really wrecked the game, dude. He dominated. And even now, Daniel's still in the sport, dude. In this sport of Hold'em, dude. It's crazy. A lot of people, yes, I understand the variance, and yes, you're going to lose. That's just part of the game. That's part of poker. You're going to lose. You can play a hand perfectly down to the river, and yet you can still lose. That's the beauty of the game, and I think that's why so many people love to play it, and like I said with the Moneymaker back in 2003, I think that really changed the dynamic of poker because it made everyone believe that the small town guy who doesn't have any hope or dreams, where it was like, well, Moneymaker did it. Why can't I do it if Moneymaker can? If Moneymaker could run a crazy bluff on Sammy Farhall, who heads up for the WSOP bracelet in 2003, why can't I? That gave everybody hope. But now, dude, it's such a different game now. From even 2003, even to 2010, dude. I would say poker really started to change around 2013 all the way up to now. This 10-year gap where it's just like, holy cow. All these players are just so much better. Even the legends back in the 80s and 90s. In today's age, dude, it just improved so much. And Doyle even said that the game of Hold'em and the game of poker in general is just really just transcended, dude. It wasn't like it was looked down upon back in the day. Now all of a sudden they look at it and it's like, it's awesome, dude. It's on TV now. They got Poker Go. Everyone's kind of tuning in, but there's just so many different variances and variables in poker. Like, does your opponent like to bet big when he's bluffing, or does he like to bluff a lot? Is he bluffy type of player? What does he do? You got to pick up on the tendencies, because really, poker, you're judging your opponent. That's really what you're doing. I'm judging you. I'm trying to figure out what type of hands do you like? What do you open up with? You're first to act. Poker, position in poker is very powerful. It really is. It's one of the most powerful tools you can have, because having position in poker, you get to see everybody's action before you can even act. So when you're on the button and you see everyone betting and say you flop top set, well, you can escalate things. You can be like, all right, I'm going to bump it up here. I see this pot's getting fat. Let's bump it up more. It really is. So it's awesome. But for Daniel, man, it's one of those things where he recently won the Poker Masters. He came in first at Poker Masters 5, winning about, almost $200,000. And this was recently. This was really recently. And Daniel Negreanu continues to win, dude. He continues to win. I think, when it's all said and done, man, Daniel Negreanu might be the GOAT. He might be like a Tiger Woods, a Michael Jordan of poker, even though they say Phil Ivey's the Tiger Woods of poker. And I understand, with his demeanor, how Phil Ivey just intimidating at the table, stares into your soul, all this stuff. But I just think for Daniel, yes, and I understand they're in the high stakes cash games. Yes, Daniel Negreanu has ran bad in some of the seasons. The legendary hand against Gus Hansen, where he flopped the middle boat and Gus Hansen turned quad fives, and they got it in, and Daniel called his all in. It's just some of those things where, that's just part of poker. Daniel Negreanu gets hit on quad eights when he flopped the straight. There's just so many, that's just part of it. That's part of the game. Even the greats, even Daniel Negreanu gets sucked out on. It's mind-boggling, right? And I just think when people go on tilt, and what tilt is basically when they go crazy. When they're mad at their opponent, they're just mad about how the cards are falling, and they just, basically punt their whole stack off and basically just say, you know what, I got 10 grand in front of me. I don't care if I lose it right now because I'm on tilt, because a lot of the hands did not go my way. And I think that's another reason why I think Phil Ivey's one of the greats, because he stated that, hey, if I get sucked out on in a big hand, let's move to the next hand. Don't let it affect your play. Let's not lose sleep over that hand, or let's not let it affect my play right now. I want to play the best I can play. But when you're thinking about that play and thinking about, oh, I got sucked out on, this sucks, maybe poker's not for me, well, then maybe you shouldn't play it, because it's going to happen, dude. You're going to get runner. Like, that's just part of the game. But for Daniel Negreanu, hats off to Daniel Negreanu, a.k.a. Kid Poker. Amazing. I mean, his career is still going. It's still going, even from the early 90s, dude. And even, it's amazing. The story's amazing, because Daniel Negreanu would go to Vegas with about 5 racks and really just go broke. for many times. And Daniel even said that, hey, is this for me? But he got back on the grind and never gave up. Now look at Daniel. In the history poker books forever, dude. So many guys look up to him. Even the geeks, even today. I mean, I feel like Daniel Negreanu is still rolling with them. Even, the guys that play every single day, the top pros, the freaking, we call them gym rats, but they're poker rats. They're in there all the time, man. They really are. So, and I think Daniel Negreanu is still that guy. We saw last year at the WSOP, I think Daniel Negreanu, maybe lost $1 million or something, bought in like so many different times. And he even said that, hey, every time I'd go all in, I was about 60%, 70% ahead, but yet I would still lose. But yeah, like I said, that is poker. It hurts. And I would describe poker in one word. It's pain. It's pain. It is pain because sometimes, obviously, the wins are definitely nice. The upswings, you're running good, you're playing nice, and you make better decisions when you're running good. But when you're running bad and getting sucked out on, are you going to still make good decisions? Are you going to pout over? Are you going to cry about it? Are you going to be a champion and overcome these things, in poker? So I love it, man. So we have to understand, how of a legend Daniel Negreanu is. Even back in the early 2000, like 3, 4, 5 times, even 2008, when he was in the WSOP, like, he would basically call out these guys' hands. And some of the times, yes, Daniel's weakness was he would still call off just to make sure he was right. And most of the time, he was right. It's crazy, but I love Daniel Negreanu, what he's done for the sport. I mean, if Daniel Negreanu would have retired today, he's still a legend. He's still a legend for poker. He's a legend for everybody around who loves poker in general. It's like, dude, Daniel Negreanu is that guy. He is, man. He's kid poker. He's still kid poker. Even though he's 48 years old right now, he is still kid poker no matter what. So Daniel Negreanu, he's one of the GOATs. Shout out to Daniel Negreanu. Shout out to poker for transcending for so long and continuing to become more popular. And I consider it a sport. I really do. And I think it's, growing just like the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter. I think that is growing as well, kind of like poker. And I think poker's going to continue to get more popular and continue to grow. And shout out to Daniel Negreanu, a.k.a. the GOAT. It's the Clown with Cam Show. Let's go!